Welcome back to the Meeple Marathon and my 12 Days of Christmas. In today's list, we're going to be talking about narrative games. So these are games that aim to tell a story throughout the gameplay. And there's plenty of narrative games out there. This was one of my larger lists where I, had way more than 12 that I had to narrow down to. So instead of really going over how the games play, I am more going to kind of give you an overview of the story and how you interact with the story and how the story is told throughout the game in this list. Since it's a narrative games list, I figure you are interested in the actual narrative. So at number 12, starting us off, we have Mansions of Madness. So this is a game that I spoke about in my Dungeon Crawlers list. It is by Fantasy Flight. It was the first one for them to use their kind of app integration to help control the AI, but it also really helps tell the story. So in Mansions of Madness, you are set in the Eldritch Horror universe, that same Cthulhu universe that they have all of their, Arkham Horror, Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror the card game, all of that stuff. So, monsters that come out of your nightmares, mythical monsters that aren't set in reality. But each scenario that Mansions of Madness you can play through is a mystery, usually that you're going to solve. And what's nice about the game in general is that this is not like a hack and slash 'em type of game like Zombicide or many of the other dungeon crawlers. This one is definitely more of a mystery that you're kind of unfolding here. So you're going to go to locations, and there may be plenty of turns where you don't see an enemy or you don't have to fight. Combat is not the main gameplay element, I guess you could say. It really is uncovering the mystery. So if you're into that kind of Cthulhu universe or something like that, or enjoy a good mystery, enjoy being creeped out just a little bit, this would definitely be a narrative story game that you would enjoy. Coming in at number 11, we have Role Player Adventures. So in my dice games, I spoke about Role Player. This is the game that takes takes the hero that essentially you've created in that game and then takes them on an adventure. So in Role Player Adventures, you are tasked as a hero, as a fully fledged hero at this point, to defend the kingdom of Nalos and uncover the mysteries that lie at the heart of the abandoned lands. There is not a ton of text that you have to read, which is nice. There is still a lot of the dice manipulation element, but what's really nice about this game, especially in the storytelling aspect, is that each kind of chapter of the game is its own little booklet. And so each booklet comes with a map that you're going to lay out, and then a booklet that you can kind of flip through that has those story pieces that you need to read through, but it's not a huge book that you're constantly having to flip through like some of these other games that we're going to talk about here shortly. But the story's okay. It's not why I am drawn to go back and play the game, though. It's more of that dice puzzle element that gets me back playing the game. Number 10. Number 10 is Folklore the Affliction. So this is another dungeon crawl-esque type of game that's got a very dark theme to it. So in Folklore the Affliction, you are various very different types of heroes. Think vampire hunters and what's that guy, Van Helsing's type of characters. And you are set out to find and destroy the source of evil that's spreading across the land. You're going to be fighting things like vampires and werewolves, lycanthropes, the undead. And so there's a very rich kind of character growth process, character creation process. There is, a very deep, rich storyline amongst. I've only played the base game, but I hear the the expansion content are also great stories, but this definitely is one of those kind of like dark, dark fantasy is what it's here. This is not for children. I will say that. It's not gory, it's not, rated R or anything like that, but it can give you the heebie-jeebies if you were playing by yourself in the dark. Number 9 is Destinies. So Destinies is another app-driven game, even more so than Mansions of Madness, because you need to have I tend to play on my phone. Some people say they prefer playing on like an iPad, but you need to be able to utilize your camera in Lucky Duck fashion to scan these QR codes, and that's going to push the narrative along, tell you, oh, can you use this chalice here at this location, or can you use your talisman to give you more luck? And so you may ask somebody about the chalice that you've been carrying around. And the whole point of Destinies, it's set in like a dark medieval fantasy universe, and you're attempting to discover what your destiny is and then go out and fulfill it. So the story, what's nice about this, could be very different if, say, you play the witch versus the huntsman or anybody else. And there is somewhat of a campaign structure to the game. There's kind of like 4 acts to the game. But then if the dark medieval fantasy isn't your thing, Destinies is a game that feels like there's a lot there. It's got a lot of cards that you're flipping over, creating a broad map, kind of like Seventh Continent, but it's a very inexpensive game, very low entry point. So maybe kind of Tales of the Arabian Nights is more your theme. Well, then you would want to go get the main expansion currently out for the game, Sands of Time, I think it is, or something like that. But yeah, this one is interesting because it is very much, the story is very much focused around your character. And then it is, again, kind of a mystery that you're unraveling. Number 8 is Gloomhaven. So this is, my top dungeon crawler. It's a Euro-based dungeon crawler. Has a storyline. I don't play it for the storyline, though. So in Gloomhaven, you are like a wandering adventurer who travels to the town of Gloomhaven and discover that there's this dark menace that's affecting both the town and the surrounding areas, and it really kind of goes deeper than I expected, for sure. And there's a decent amount of like flavor text in between. And then there's city and road events. You can see in this picture here that you're kind of mix things up in between the scenarios. And there are a ton of missions that you can go on, but you could get lost in a lot of side missions, and this is what happened to me and my brother-in-law when we were playing through the original game campaign, was that we kept going off on all these side missions, and we would kind of lose track of what the main storyline was, and we'd come back and be like, where are we supposed to be? What are we even doing again? Obviously we had marked like what scenario to go on, but the actual storytelling I kind of lost track of. So even though this is an amazing game, it's not necessarily the best story on my list. All right, at number 7, we have Aftermath. So this is a game also by Jerry Hawthorne. I spoke in my Dungeon Crawlers about Mice and Mystics. This is in similar fashion. This is by Plaid Hat Games, but they... Well, I know I said I'm not going to do this, but this is... there's some really nice gameplay elements that are like quality of life stuff here. First of all, they give you right out of the box little tuck boxes to store your characters in and all the little cards you get for them. And everything is basically in this book. So you just flip open this book and it's like one page of this is where you're going to be for the next part of at least this scenario. Maybe you flip the page again to move to the next one. But the story is told. Well, essentially the setup is that humans have vanished from civilization in this game. They were just there one day and gone the next. Think of like Thanos snapping his finger, except all the humans are lost and all the animals in nature remain. So nature then starts to evolve and take over to become the more primary, sentient beings in the world. And so you're playing a band of like misfit critters, mainly mice or guinea pigs, things like that. And you're trying to build up your colony, but also there's this mystery of like the kind of colony elders who have disappeared, and what happened to them and where did they go and who took them and things like that. Um, so there's like character progression, and it is a campaign style game. Essentially, though, you are like drawing a card and it's going to say, all right, go to this page of the book, and then depending on what scenario you're playing the book, you could go back to the same location multiple times. What didn't quite catch for me with this one as much as Mice and Mystics was that there was no like linear story. It very much was like, okay, you've unlocked cards D, G, Z, and M, and you can go do Z now if you want. And sometimes you would go out on a mission, and I would feel like I was missing something. I was missing part of the story, but there was no real way to go back and say, well, there wasn't like a list of, oh, you should play them in this order, because even playing them always choosing the lowest numbered mission first, it didn't always do that for you. So I feel like if this is one where they gave you a little bit too much freedom, and the story got very convoluted for me, and I could, again, kind of just lost track of things. But it's a very cute, whimsical type of story that you could easily play with your kids. Coming in at number 6, we have ISS Vanguard. So this is one of the newer games on the list. This one just came out from Awakened Realms, and this is a space opera in a box. Now, ISS Vanguard tells the story of humans on Earth discovering that in our DNA is a code of coordinates out in space. And so now we have built the ISS Vanguard to go out and answer humanity's biggest question, which is, where did we come from? There is a heck of a lot of story, and they have a free to download and use app that includes all of the narration, professionally done. That's the way I recommend playing. They do have the paper book that you can just flip through and read it all yourself. If you hate apps, that's fine. But this game, originally I was thinking Star Trek was the best way for me to explain it. But what this actually feels more like, some of you may get this reference, some of you may not, but this feels to me like Mass Effect, the board game. Mass Effect was a very popular video game for, I believe it was on all the systems, certainly Xbox, most likely PlayStation, but it was a space opera, but there was a lot more like combat. Obviously you were going down on the planets and fighting, but then you were always coming back to your ship and then going to another planet, and that's what this is. You're going to go down to the planet, and there's going to be some back and forth and some radio contact with ISS Vanguard, but really it's like the main storyline happens when you're like pushing and discovering new planets and things like that. The best part about this game, though, is that ship book you can see there where it says Mission Archives. Coming back to your ship with new stuff and like healing your people and spending time to discover new tech or research projects and adding modifications to your landers, that honestly is the best part of the game. The story is okay, it's pretty good, and if you enjoy sci-fi or you are a Star Trek fan, I would definitely recommend this one. But yeah, the best part of the game, and it is a really good part, it's a really cool part, I don't have any other game like this, is that kind of ship log book, that ship phase. In Mass Effect, going back to the ship was really just kind of to heal and figure out what your next mission was going to go on, whereas this is like half the gameplay is in that ship log book. Number 5 is Madara. So this is another one we covered on our dungeon crawlers. This is the massive kind of anime style RPG. So the setting of Madara is that you are in this ultra modern fantasy world that exists alongside Earth. And when you are chosen, and usually it's like the rich kids are chosen, you can be transported. Your life ends on Earth, and you are transported forever onto Madara. And then once you're there, you don't age. So most everybody on Madara is like a teenager, essentially. This one definitely has that anime feel to it. It is very much like a teenage soap opera. There's a lot of teenage angst in the storyline, but it is a good storyline. If you can get past the, the anime feel, if you're okay with that kind of theme, then the story's really good. This is another one. You'll see here one of my pictures that I included was the foreteller page where you can get Madara for free. At least Act 1. I don't know what their plans are for Act 2 and 3. They haven't come out yet, so Foreteller hasn't put anything out there yet, but there is a ton of text. I mean, the book for this that has all the narration and the story in it, and you can see here a lot of it is hidden behind like red revealer text and things like that. You still need to reveal that text, but the times where it's just like, all right, here's the flavor text between the story where you just want to sit and listen, get the Foreteller app. I mean, it is so much reading. It is almost a novel. I mean, this book is inches thick of story, but it's a really good story if you are okay with the kind of anime teenage angst setting. Coming in at number 4 is Mice and Mystics. So this is very much along the same lines. It's the same designer, author as Aftermath. So this is by Jerry Hawthorne. This is actually kind of his original mouse game, and also by Plaid Hat Games. This is easily one of their kind of games that put them on the map. But Mice and Mystics is definitely feels more like a story. I mean, before you start as a campaign game, and before you start that first game, there is a decent amount of reading to do, where it's basically that first box is called Sorrow and Remembrance because the king has died, and as the king passes away, you as the prince and your court are turned into mice by this evil sorceress Venestra who wants to kind of take over. So she wants you out of the picture, so she kind of turns you into mice and thinks that's it. And so then you have to kind of race across the castle to right the ship and make things right. You can see here one of the expansions, even literally the expansion box is designed to look like a book. So you can tell that there is a lot of thoughtful storyline put into here. I also have in the middle here, one of my all-time favorite books ever is Redwall by Brian Jacques Hughes, and I feel like this is Redwall, the board game, because it's little anthropomorphic mice who can wield a sword and do everything else, but the world out there is still human-sized. So you have to overcome those obstacles. But it's a very whimsical story. This is a great one that if you wanted to play with kids, you could feel free to do so. If you enjoyed any of those Brian Jacques Hughes books, this one is right up your alley. This is a no-brainer. Excellent, fun storyline. Top 3. Near and Far by Ryan Lockett. Yeah, let's get into this. So, in Near and Far, you are a wanderer, and you are in search of the Last Ruin, which is a city that contains a legendary artifact that supposedly can grant any wish. Give you your greatest desires of the heart, I think. So this is, really, I think Ryan's first big successful Atlas game, where basically you just kind of flip over or open book game where the map that you're going to play on for that particular scenario, you flip open and everything is right there. But then there is a whole big book of text. What's really amazing about Near and Far is the various ways you can play. You can play a full campaign where you're literally going to play through every single map and follow along in the story. Or my preferred way to play is to take one of the characters and go through their specific story. So all of a sudden now there is a whole nother set of story text, but it's just focused on that character. There's like certain points that they highlight on the maps that say, oh, you probably want to go here and here and here, but you may not even hit everyone. But it's also more condensed. I think you do like 3 maps, and then the final map, the last ruin map, whereas normally you would do every single map and then the last ruin map. But the story is really good. The opportunity to make decisions that affect things is really good. I was very surprised by the ending the first time I got to the ending. It was just kind of like a very much what was that movie with Bruce Willis, the kid that sees ghosts? Anyways, it was one of those moments. It was like, bam! I did not see that coming. The guy's not a ghost, but yeah, it's just really great storytelling, and that's essentially what the game is just kind of wandering across these different locations and heading back up into town when you need to. But yeah, just excellent game. This is my second favorite game by Ryan Lockett, and we're going to see the other one here in just a minute. Top 2. Tainted Grail: Fall of Avalon. So this one is at number 2 mainly because of my personal preference, and that is the topic at hand. This Tainted Grail blends Arthurian legend with Celtic mythology, and essentially this is like after the time of Arthur, and Arthur is not necessarily the knight in shining armor character that he is portrayed as in most stories. In this story, this is a very dark story, but it is it's an amazing story. Honestly, this is one where I could just sit down and just this is another one that has narration included, similar to ISS Vanguard. Awakened Realms created an app that just you can play through, click the number of whatever entry you want to read through. I could probably just sit there and play this on narration, and it's like an audiobook. For me, I love the whole Arthurian legend topic, so this one really hits home for me. But the story is just really well written. I think anybody that appreciates good literature would appreciate the storyline here. The gameplay is similar to Seventh Continent, where you're putting out these cards, oversized cards, that when you put them all out, if you laid them all out on the table, would create this huge map that's just some amazing artwork. And you just kind of travel across it, solving all these mysteries, and you're going to run into characters from the Arthurian legend. You're going to run into the Lancelots and what's that? The Lady of the Lake and Morgana, things like that. You're going to make choices. It really is a good game. It's a deep game. It's kind of a crunchy game. It's a very unique battle system in this game that does not involve dice in any way, shape, or form. So there's that. But essentially now that Arthur is no longer the king, you actually play an apprentice. You're not even the best of the best in town. Your mentor has gone off to try and determine why this weirdness, this fog, is spreading across the land, turning everybody crazy, and then they don't come back. So you're the next best option. You're the B team being sent out to find your mentor and determine what happened, and obviously there's more fate involved there than you might know, and things like that. So, but it was a great story, and the theme really just hit home for me. And number 1, if anybody's familiar with the channel, you can probably guess what this is. It is Sleeping Gods. So Sleeping Gods is another game by Ryan Lockett and Red Raven Games. This one is a true Atlas style game. You can kind of see a part of the Atlas peeking out here on the table below me, where this person has everything spread out. Because literally the book, if you took all the pages of the book, and you can't because they're double-sided, but if you figured out a way to tear them all out and lay them all out, it would create this huge map. Near and far, every 2 pages was its own little map, separate from the rest, and very confined right there. This one, You literally drive your boat off the edge of the map, and you're going to flip to a new page, and there you are in a new area. You can also see here, this isn't spoilers, they give you this kind of overview map of what it would look like, kind of in black and white, and it's meant to take notes on. And you can just see how expansive the world is. And then there's this box of quest cards that are meant to just stay in the box, stay in order. It's a really nice box that comes with the game. It's got a magnetic closure lid. But these quest cards are going to pop up, and then there's a big book of narration. But if you've not heard me give my spiel about Sleeping Gods in the past, you are essentially, it's set in like 1929. So early 20th century, you are on the steamboat, the Manticore, and it's like you drive into a mist, and when you come out on the other side, you are no longer in the New York Harbor anymore. You are in this strange, exotic land, and you're trying to just get back home, but all of a sudden you're realizing there's stuff going on here, and, you know, we got to figure it out. Anyways, the story is very intriguing, but what just makes this game so amazing, it is truly the best open world board game out there, where you can truly go in any direction you want. And I think there's like 9 or 10 different endings, so you could play through the entire game and have a storyline that you have created that is unique, and an ending that's amazing. I mean, I don't know, the ending to my first campaign was just stellar. I don't know if they're all like that. I haven't gotten back to playing it all the way through. I really do want to, and Distant Skies is coming out next year. Very looking forward to that. But this game, I have always compared this to my favorite video game, which is Zelda Breath of the Wild. That one, literally, you can just walk in any direction. You can climb any mountain at any given point in time. This one's the same way. You can sail in any direction. You can inspect any little thing. You know, your quest cards are going to give you some direction of where to go, but it truly is like a it's not a choose your own adventure, it's a create your own adventure with multiple endings, multiple storylines, so much to discover. He really just hit it out of the park with this one. He took everything he did right with Near and Far and just slam dunked it. So that is it. That is my list of my top 12 narrative games. A few games that just did not quite make the cut, but still have great storylines. I'm just going to list through them here. Legacy of Dragonholt, which is literally just, you know, a paper pencil type of game, where you're reading through the story. Adventures of Robin Hood, which if you enjoy the Robin Hood storyline, which Robin Hood's right up there with Arthurian legend for me. This one has this big, huge board that's always the same in front of you, but has little, it's like, you know, triple layered, and you can pop out tokens and flip them over and kind of change the way the board looks as the story plays along. It also has a really nice book. The book that comes with it and tells the story is actually like a leather-bound book with bookmarks. It looks like something you would actually see on your shelf. There's Descent Legends of the Dark. This one, the gameplay did not hit for me, but the storyline was actually pretty good. When I got into the gameplay elements, I felt like it was just the same old hack and slash that original Descent was. Seventh Continent is there, which is, you know, the storyline's okay. It's definitely a mystery because you're literally given nothing at the beginning. So sometimes you could just completely die before you figure out any part of the story. And then there's Etherfields. Etherfields was a very weird, you know, you're like jumping in and out of your dreams essentially. Had a very weird storyline. So if that's something you're looking for, something entirely different, you know, you can check out Etherfields. It is by Awakened Realms, who I have 2 games on my list here from Awakened Realms. So obviously they do a pretty good job of storytelling. And that's going to do it for my list of narrative games for 12 Days of Christmas. Again, if you are enjoying these videos, please consider giving them a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. Once again, thanks for watching. Have a great day.